Today, we are talking about the top 10 constructors that every player needs in Fortnite Save the World. This is not a tier list. This is not a top 10 list necessarily. They're in no particular order. I'm just showcasing 10 heroes that everybody should have. So let's just hop straight into it with two constructors that are barely constructors. We're starting off in the rad section with Dennis Jr. Dennis Jr. gives Totally Rockin' Out. This is the highest damage team perk in the entire game. In all of the strongest loadouts that you've pretty much ever seen on my channel, we use Totally Rockin' Out. Ironically, that's excluding the strongest loadout I've ever used. That uses Happy Holidays, but that's a different situation altogether. Totally Rockin' Out is very, very strong, and Dennis Jr. is technically a constructor. So, because he's not really a normal base constructor, I also put him on par with another constructor in the Pirates section, Blakebeard the Blackhearted. He gives you Blakebeard Stash, another hugely useful team perk, especially for ventures and lower level players. Peg legs, cannonballs, and coconuts are super, super powerful. Peg legs are a great melee that scale with your power level, so they're good even to the end game. Very, very good hero to have because of these different perks, and you can even throw them in support, buffing the cannonball damage. I use this in almost every single venture season. One more thing to add about that is that it's not just the cannonball damage from the cannonballs in the team perk, but it's also cannonball firing launchers like the Cannonade, the Bowler, and the Jabberwocky. In fact, I can demonstrate this. This is doing 210,000, and if I switch to a loadout with him in support, it goes from 210,000 up to 239,000. All three of these launchers are super fun, and I'll link videos on each of them in the description down below if you guys want to check out more. Now that we got two amazing team perks out of the way, let's talk about some actually good base-focused constructors, starting with Base Kyle. He is as boring and as simple as a constructor needs to be. He increases your building health by 84% in the lead, 28% in support. He makes your walls thicker. If you want smashers to stop breaking their way in without knocking, use this guy in the lead and he will stop them in their tracks. If he's not in the lead, he should be in support if you are using a defensive base. Another hero that everybody uses alongside him is Power Modulation from Power Base Knox. He increases the healing by a ton in the lead and even less in support. If Base Kyle's in the lead, Base Knox should be in support. If Knox is in the lead, Kyle should be in support. These two heroes are like the backbones of every constructor loadout, and everybody's favorite lead is actually in the holiday section. This is a seasonal character that's only available certain times of the year. As I'm recording this, he's actually available during Frost Night. So if you're watching this video immediately upon it going live, he might still be available. I do have a long schedule on my channel, so videos don't always go out right away, but still, the timeline is in the description down below if you guys ever want to see when any of this stuff comes back. Super useful resource. This means that a smasher, if he breaks your wall unwarranted, will just be frozen for a while you deal with him. Super, super useful. He is literally the most popular constructor lead in the entire game. If you're not using Ice King, you should be. Even in support, snaring enemies is a great perk because 15% snared means they're just walking 15% slower. And if they're walking 15% slower, they're spending 15% longer underneath all of your traps while they walk towards your objective. That is a surprisingly useful bonus. It's almost a damage bonus. Not quite, but it's almost a damage bonus, and it's a really solid one at that. Now, one more base game constructor that's available all the way down in the scavenger section is Machinist Harper. She increases your trap durability by 17.5% support, 52.5% in the lead, and she is amazing. If you're a new player who doesn't really like how long your traps are lasting, maybe they're breaking super early, she can help you with that. If you're an endgame player running endurance, you already know about this hero. In the commander slot, she is excellent for making your traps last the 3 hours that they need to, or at least for half the time so you don't have to replace them nearly as much. She's also excellent in ventures. When you don't have your survivor squads and their trap durability bonuses, you can use Machinist Harper in the lead or support to make your traps last longer. In ventures, we're all starting over, so the less you have to farm, the less traps you have to replace, the better. So this is a hero that's available throughout the year, and if you're having trouble with trap durability, she'll help you out. The next hero I want to mention is actually in the historic section. She is a dinosaur, giving you blasts from the past. I've said it many times, and I stand by it. Prehistoric Izza is the best dino in the game. Yeah, that's right, I said it. She's very uninteresting. She increases your armor by 33, which more or less means you're taking about a third less damage. That's not literally how it works, but that's pretty much how it works. It's as simple as that. You put her in support when you're running Blast from the Past. If I'm running Blast from the Past for any reason, she is almost always in support because that extra tankiness goes so far. You already don't have shield, and if you didn't think tripling your health was enough, why not taking a third less damage. It's a super great perk, and everybody who's running Blast in the Past should have her. Now, going back to the base game Constructors section, we're going to be talking about Mega Base Kyle. First and foremost, this is extremely expensive. He is not worth this much flux, and he is not worth this many training manuals. He does not spawn in regular missions either. Mega Base Kyle can be in your normal upgrade llamas, your smorgasbord llamas, troll truck, legendary troll truck, superhero llamas. You're almost certainly going to have to spend X-ray tickets to get him, but I think that's a cheaper way to get him because we get 80 X-ray tickets every single day at least. So that's something you should wait around for. Some people go months and months without ever getting Mega Base Kyle, and I'm sorry, but if you do get him, he's awesome for two reasons. First, he increases your base connectivity range. One does not sound like much, but you need to remember this is in all directions, up and down. So when you have a big base with a lot of traps, one more tile up, all around the edge, up and down, goes a lot further than you might realize. And in the lead, it goes out by 3, which is just blanketing everything. And the second reason he's so good is because he gives you the team perk Supercharged Traps. Supercharged Traps is 8.5% times every single constructor in support, so that can get up to a 5 times multiplier. That's a 42.5% damage bonus to every single trap down there. That is amazing. I made a whole video series covering this in the 164 player missions where I ran Mega Base in the lead and Supercharged Traps, and they were so much stronger. It was extremely satisfying. Link to those videos down below if you guys want to see them. Very, very good hero if you can get him. Unfortunately, I don't think he's worth the flux. You can make that decision for yourself, but there he is. So now we're going to be covering 3 heroes all at once because all 3 of these heroes are pretty good heroes that make your base do damage. They're not extremely good, worth fluxing right now. They're not going to work in the end game necessarily, but if you're a lower level player needing help, or if you're a high level player trying to AFK V-Buck missions, Electro-Pulse Penny is one of these 3. Fully Contained is a perk where enemies smack your base and they take damage. It's about as simple as that. Super nice to have. Not a ridiculous amount of damage, but it's something worth knowing. And then the other hero I wanted to mention is somewhere in here. Okay, I found her in the road trip section. Thunder Thora. She's kind of the same thing, where electrified floors makes enemies take damage when they're standing on your base. So you can put Mega Base as your commander and then put down as many wooden floors as you want, and the enemies will just take damage as they walk towards you. Again, it's not enough damage for the end game, but it's a nice bit of extra damage if you're already running base. Now, the last of the 3 I wanted to mention is in the Cyberpunk section, Heavy Base Kyle. He can be available in regular missions and regular upgrade llamas, just like the other base game heroes, but he gives you Feel the Base. It's a slightly more complicated perk where enemies getting eliminated on your base charges it, and every 30 eliminations on your base, it'll go and then like explode out and do a little bit of extra damage. It's not a ton of damage, but it's nice, and when you combine all 3 of these heroes in support, it's actually kind of viable if you're in a lower level zone and you're a higher power level, so it's nice to have, and that's why I put all 3 of these in kind of the same tier. Now, we're going to be talking about rocket launchers in the Shadow Ops section. By the way, all of these heroes can be achieved through military llamas. They come around to the shop randomly for X-ray tickets, so if you see them, maybe you can check it out, but Demolitionist Penny is the only hero in the entire game that directly buffs rocket launchers. There are a lot of heroes that influence rocket launchers, but she's the only one that names them, and 17% in support is a lot, considering a lot of the strongest rocket launchers, Potshot, Wrath, Sandslow Helper, Bazooka, are easily doing hundreds of thousands or millions of damage. So 17% is like a ton. It's hundreds of thousands of extra damage, and running her in the lead is ridiculous. We ran a Discharger only Frost Knight run recently where I ran her in the lead with totally rocking out, and it was absurd. So definitely a great hero to have. I don't know if it's worth fluxing her or not. Maybe just one copy could be worth it because rocket launchers are really strong, but it's because rocket launchers are really strong that they don't really need her bonus. So I'm gonna leave that up to you. If everybody needs her or not is a little bit up for debate, but I still wanted to mention her because she also pairs well with 8-Bit Demo. 8-Bit Demo is available in the weekly shop randomly. We see him about once a year. It's not really set when he comes around, but when you see him, you should grab him because he makes explosive weapons save 20% of their ammo. That means every 5th shot just doesn't fire out of your weapon. You do damage and it does leave your weapon, but then the ammo is still there. So it kind of just saves you 20% of your ammo, and considering rocket ammo and energy ammo are really expensive, that's kind of a nice thing to have. And if you pair this with my insane rocket loadout, link to the description down below, you can fire your weapon a lot before you reload. It more than triples your magazine size. So him plus Demolitionist Penny is an amazing combo, and I highly recommend checking that out if you guys can afford these. Unfortunately, he's voucher only if you're not able to get them from the weekly shop, so your mileage may vary on obtaining him. Now, the next two heroes I want to mention are all about keeping you alive, and the first one is Arrlene Izza. She is surprisingly good for melee builds. She heals you when you do damage with your melee. It keeps you alive in the fight. In my Stormblade Explosion video, I use her in support to basically stand in the storm with beehives, with enemies attacking me, and so long as you're booming the enemies attacking you, you stay alive through it all. It's a really, really powerful perk if used correctly, and if you're running melees, you definitely want her in support. In fact, I had a friend of mine, shout out Aura, who was trying to use that Stormblade build and didn't have Arrlene Izza, and no hero in the entire game fit the bill quite like her. So he was unable to enjoy it as much until he eventually got her, and then he had a ton of fun. And the other one I want to mention is Bombsquad Kyle. Neither of these heroes are like absolute must-haves on their own, but I figured putting them in the same tier was a nice theme of keeping you alive, and he gives you armor. It's about as simple as that. 22 extra armor. You just take a little bit less damage. I did actually use him in that Discharger run, I believe, and it saved me a couple of times. I'm not going to be able to find the clips because the videos are like an hour and a half long, but suffice it to say, there were a couple of instances where I got hit by a taker, and I recognized my health range as if he wasn't in my support, I'd be dead. So actually a pretty useful hero, even if this number doesn't seem very impressive. Now, for those of you counting at home, you might notice that we're already at 10 tiers of heroes, but I wanted to give you guys some extra anyway. This is not for my base game players. This is for when you get to the end game. When you're running the Mythic Storm King fight and you're trying to do some extra damage on the Horn, the strongest weapons for the Horn are hardware. There are some really good swords in the game, but you're mostly trying to use the Surround Pound or the Storm King's Fury, and upping your hardware critical rating and your hardware damage is really, really nice. So Guardian Bull is the crit rating, and Tank Penny gives you some extra damage. These are just sort of some extra credit points that I mentioned. Like, you don't need these heroes to beat Storm King, but they'll absolutely help you out. And because they're base game heroes, and you can get them from regular upgrade llamas as well, you'll have plenty of time to collect one or both of these heroes before your power level 122, and you can run the Storm King on your own. So that was my list of, 10 recommended constructors that everybody should have. This list was more like 15, but I hope you don't mind some extra credit. Subscribe if you're new, if you enjoyed, maybe check out one of these recommended videos. I'll be happy to see you over there. So, yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next one, and thanks for watching. Wow. You know what? Bombsuit Kyle. I'd be dead. Literally. That was the health 100%. Range where Bombsuit Kyle is the only reason I'm alive. Wow. He's actually useful. Like, I never said he was bad. I just didn't think that would make the difference. Like, if you're gonna die, you're gonna die. But no, like, Bomb Squad? I'm saying it wrong, but Bomb Squad Kyle, I think that just saved my life. How about that, Chad? And then